So I want to talk about QuickBooks Online Trial Balance, which is a feature that's only available in QuickBooks Online Accountant. And you have QuickBooks Online Accountant because you see the big green bar in the top, and you see the word accountant next to the QB logo on the top left. So when you're logged into QuickBooks Online Accountant, you go ahead and select your client. And then in the screen here, you're going to see the word trial balance in the right, on the bottom right, and you can click on start review or continue review, because in this particular case, I already started my review. Some of the components to look at here is here in the top left, you're going to see the word trial balance there, letting you know that you're inside that function. And then it tells you what year you're reviewing. So in this particular case, we're reviewing 2014. And if I click on the little pencil, I get to choose which is the tax form. And we'll talk about tax forms later on. Tax forms to model after whenever setting up an export or mapping the accounts. Here on the right, actually on the top, you're going to see every change that was made either by the client or the accountant that is past the review period. That way you'll know whether there are changes being made before you're actually completing the financial statements or doing the tax return. Now here in the core of the functionality here for trial balance is going to be each account from your chart of accounts with a type and unadjusted balances and the activity for the year. And then as you scroll a little bit to the right, you're going to see adjusted entries, and I'm going to show you adjusting entries in a second. And then all the way to the right is the adjusted balances, which is finally what will post into your final financial statements or your tax return if that's what you're using this for. Now here on the very first column, you get a check mark. So kind of as you verify each balance, like for example, I went to my bank account, I verified that that dollar amount was the right dollar amount. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a check mark on that. That lets me and the rest of the people in my firm know that that account has been checked. It's good to go. We've been given the green light. Here all the way to the right where it says work papers, I can actually click on that little paper icon there, and I can actually write something like I checked the bank statement, right? Yeah, I could put here as of 12/31/14, whatever I want to put. So I can add little notes in there, and it will keep kind of track of who wrote the last note. And then there on the paperclip column, I can click on that, and I can actually upload the statement or upload a spreadsheet or a scanned document or an email confirmation from a client of whatever. So the idea is that I kind of go account by account, and I have a place where I can measure my workflow. I know where I stand on this finishing the financial statements and doing the trial balance, and finally probably giving this information to tax preparer or preparing the tax return myself. Now, the adjusting entries are reserved for journal entries that are made by the accountant. So for example, let's say I'm looking at this particular account here, loan from personal 160, and my client tells me, no, I don't have any actual loans. Just make that distribution or contribution, whatever. So let me go ahead and make a journal entry to adjust that so you can actually see what happens. So I'm going to click on add journal entry. And this is a regular plain vanilla journal entry, just like it is on a regular QuickBooks circumstance. However, as I set up the journal entry here, so the only difference between an adjusting journal entry and a regular journal entry is that it would have that little check mark up here on the top. So I have to make sure that I mark this is adjusting entry. And then once I mark that, QuickBooks Online knows that every single adjustment under this category, and let me go ahead and put the dollar amount there, that every single adjustment in this category, it's going to go into that column of adjusted journal entries, and then you can actually track those events differently. So when I go ahead and see loan from personal distribution and I go all the way down to this column, I can see the debit and the credit under adjusting entry, and that's finally how it's going to figure out what the total adjusted balance is. So we wanted that number to be 0. And so it started at 160 based on everything the client did in QuickBooks Online. Then we did an adjusting entry and then ended up in 0, right? So that's kind of like the purpose, is that you have a sort of clean, a single page way you can review all your accounts. Now, a couple other tricks here. I like to collapse this little top bar there. That way I get a little bit more real estate. And then when I scroll all the way to the right and left, let me hit cancel there. When I hit all the way right and left, I kind of lose a little bit of vision. So one of the things I can do to not lose that much vision is I can hit a Control plus or Control or Command plus Control minus in the browser, and I can kind of zoom in and out so I can get a little bit more space. So unfortunately, because there's so many columns that we're dealing with, you may have to play with the zoom until you actually get a full visual of what you're trying to do. All right, so that's the purpose of the trial balance. Really, that's really all it is. A pretty simple tool. Now the next step is, let's talk about tax returns. So let's say I am a tax preparer, or I'm preparing this for a tax preparer. Let me go ahead and collapse the left column there. That way I get a little bit more real estate. And I'll zoom this in. And then if I'm going to export this into tax software, first thing I want to do is make sure that the tax mappings are right. So when I click on tax mapping, QuickBooks actually did most of the work for me. It actually recognized a lot of these accounts that were set up from the beginning, and it put it into the line item in the tax return. And basically where that comes from is tax form 1065. So if you click on the little pencil up there and you happen to be doing tax mapping for a corporation or something like that, that's going to have a different line item, and QuickBooks will do all that work for you. And then any accounts that are left unassigned, they're going to be put here under the unmapped category, and then you actually have to go in there and click on assign tax line and say, well, that's job, labor, income. That's going to be line. Let me go down to the cost of goods sold category, and then I go find the cost of goods sold category. There it is, and I assign it. And then once I'm done assigning all of them, the software, the trial balance in QuickBooks Online will actually export a really clean spreadsheet that you can import into most tax programs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on export tax mappings and click on export to CSV, so kind of show you how this will work. So I open up the CSV file here, and we see one column. It's for the descriptive sort of target in the tax return. It's telling you what line it's going to go to, what category. It gives you here the balance. All the balances are going to show as positive for debits and credits. So if you see a negative balance, it's just the opposite of the natural polarity of that account. And then under account, you actually get the actual account's name from your chart of accounts, and then the major type, which is an important component of understanding where all these things go. So most larger tax software packages like Lacert, ProSeries, CS Tax, UltraTax, all those softwares have the ability for you to import from a spreadsheet into the software, the trial balance. That way you don't have to manually enter all these things by hand. But even if you had to manually enter these things by hand in a tax software that doesn't import, I think it's very nice to have a worksheet where you can organize them and you can export them into Excel spreadsheet that kind of guides you to the tax preparation process. So it should be a lot easier for large firms to communicate financial statements and trial balances from QuickBooks Online using the trial balance tool instead of just a traditional P&L and balance sheet printout. So that is a trial balance for QuickBooks Online Accountant. If you like this video, go ahead and put some comments below, hit like, and then as Intuit adds more functionality to this tool, which I'm very excited about, especially this coming tax season, I'm going to create more videos and kind of show you where all those things are.